You know that person who seems calm when everything around them is falling apart? The one who doesn't raise their voice, doesn't explain too much, doesn't chase people for clarity, doesn't beg to be understood. They just get quiet. And because they get quiet, people assume they don't care. They assume the silence means coldness, distance, pride, maybe even emotional unavailability. But what if that silence is not a lack of feeling? What if it is the exact opposite? What if the person who looks the most detached is actually the one feeling everything so deeply that speaking too soon feels dangerous? Because here is the part most people never understand. Some people do not go quiet because they have nothing to say. They go quiet because they have too much happening inside them at once. Too many thoughts. Too many emotions. Too many memories waking up at the same time. Too many possible consequences running through their mind before a single word can leave their mouth. And if you are that person, this video is going to explain something you may have felt your entire life but never had the language to describe. You are not emotionless. You are not impossible to love. You are not broken just because your pain does not come out loudly. There is a reason you learned to become quiet. And once you understand that reason, you may finally stop judging yourself for surviving the only way you knew how. Let's start with what people get wrong first. When someone hurts you and you suddenly pull back, people usually think you are choosing silence as a punishment. They imagine you sitting there thinking, "I'll make them feel bad by not talking." They think your quietness is a strategy, a game, a way to gain control. But that is usually not what is happening. Most of the time, you are not trying to control anyone. You are trying not to lose control of yourself. There is a huge difference. Because in that moment, something inside you shifts. Your face may look calm, but your body already knows something is wrong. Your chest gets tight. Your stomach drops. Your breathing changes. Your mind starts moving faster than your mouth can follow. And suddenly, every sentence feels risky. If you speak too soon, you might say too much. If you explain too much, you might sound weak. If you show how hurt you are, the wrong person might use it against you. So your system does the thing it learned to do. It closes the door. Not forever. Just long enough for you to feel safe again. And that is why silence can be so misunderstood. To other people, it looks like rejection. But inside you, it feels like protection. You are not trying to disappear from them. You are trying to come back to yourself. And maybe this started earlier than you realize. Because nobody is born afraid to express pain. A child cries when they are hurt. A child reaches out when they are scared. A child expects comfort before they ever learn to expect judgment. But somewhere along the way, many people are taught that being hurt out loud creates more problems than it solves. Maybe when you cried, someone told you that you were too sensitive. Maybe when you explained yourself, someone turned your words against you. Maybe when you needed comfort, someone gave you criticism. Maybe when you were upset, people acted like your emotions were an inconvenience. And slowly, quietly, your mind began to learn a lesson. Not because the lesson was healthy, but because it was useful. It learned, if I show too much, I might be hurt more. It learned, if I speak before I understand what I feel, I might regret it. It learned, if I stay quiet, at least I can protect what is left of me. So now, years later, when something hurts you, your silence may not belong only to the present moment. It may be carrying old memories, old disappointments, old moments when your honesty was not handled gently. That is why small things can feel bigger than they look. Someone delays a response. Someone changes their tone. Someone dismisses something you said. Someone makes you feel like you are asking for too much. And suddenly, your body reacts as if it has been here before. Because maybe it has. Not in the exact same place. Not with the exact same person. But with the same emotional pattern. The same feeling of being unsafe. The same fear that if you open up, you might not be protected. And this is where people often judge you unfairly. They see the silence, but they do not see the history behind it. They see you pull away, but they do not see how hard you are working not to fall apart. They see you stop talking, but they do not hear the hundreds of thoughts moving inside your head. Because quiet people are rarely empty inside. In fact, many quiet people are emotionally overloaded. They are analyzing, remembering, comparing, predicting, trying to understand what just happened and what it means. They ask themselves questions other people may never even notice. Did I overreact? Did they mean it that way? Should I say something now or wait? If I explain this, will they understand me or dismiss me again? Is this really about what happened today, or is this connected to something older? And that is exhausting. Because while everyone else thinks you are doing nothing, you may actually be doing the deepest emotional work in the room. You are not ignoring the situation. You are trying to understand it without making it worse. And sometimes, that is why your words take time. Because to you, words matter. You know what careless words can do. You know how one sentence can stay in someone's mind for years. You know how an angry reaction can damage trust. So you hold back. Not because you do not care about the relationship, but because you care enough not to throw your pain at someone before you have understood it. That part of you deserves more credit than it gets. Because it is easy to react. It is easy to say the first sharp thing that comes to mind. It is easy to make someone else feel the pain you are feeling. But you do something harder. You pause. You absorb. You try to separate what is true from what is triggered. You try to figure out whether the person in front of you is really the enemy, or whether they accidentally touched a wound they did not create. That is not weakness. That is emotional restraint. But here is the problem. Even emotional restraint can become lonely when nobody understands it. Because the longer you stay silent, the more other people start creating their own story about you. They think you are angry. They think you are judging them. They think you are done. They think you are trying to make them suffer. And sometimes, their reaction to your silence becomes more painful than the thing that hurt you in the first place. Because now you are not only dealing with your own pain. You are also dealing with their frustration about how you process pain. And that creates a difficult cycle. You get hurt. You go quiet to feel safe. They pressure you to speak. The pressure makes you feel even less safe. So you become even quieter. And then they feel even more rejected. Nobody wins. Not because nobody cares, but because two nervous systems are asking for opposite things. They want immediate reassurance. You need space before you can be honest. They want words now. You need time to find words that are true. They want proof that you still care. You are trying to care without losing yourself. And this is why the right kind of understanding matters so much. Because quiet people do not always need someone to chase them. Sometimes they need someone stable enough not to panic when they pause. Someone who does not treat silence like abandonment. Someone who can say, I can see you need a moment. I'm here when you're ready. That kind of patience can feel unfamiliar at first. Almost suspicious. Because if you grew up having to defend your emotions, calm patience can feel strange. You may not trust it immediately. You may wonder when the pressure is coming. When the criticism is coming. When the punishment is coming. But when someone consistently gives you room without disappearing, something inside you slowly begins to soften. You begin to learn that silence does not always have to be a wall. Sometimes it can become a bridge. A pause before honesty. A breath before connection. A safe space where your emotions can settle enough to become words. And if this is already making something inside you feel understood, stay with me, because in the next part we need to go deeper. Because your silence is not just about pain. It is also about trust. And the real question is not only why you go quiet. The deeper question is, what would have to happen for you to finally feel safe enough to speak? If this first part already gave words to something you have carried for a long time, subscribe to the channel, because this is exactly the kind of emotional truth we explore here. And maybe that is the question you have been carrying without even knowing it. What would it take for you to feel safe enough to speak? Not pressured enough. Not cornered enough. Not emotionally exhausted enough that the words finally come out because you cannot hold them anymore. But safe enough. Because there is a difference between someone forcing you to talk and someone creating a space where your truth can breathe. Most people do not understand that difference. They think if they push hard enough, you will finally open up. But pressure does not create honesty. Pressure creates defense. And when you are already hurt, defense is the last layer between you and a deeper kind of pain. So when someone says, "Just tell me what's wrong," it may sound simple to them. But inside you, it can feel like being asked to hand over something fragile to someone who is moving too fast. You are not trying to be complicated. You are trying to decide whether your feelings will be safe once they leave your body. Because once words are spoken, they cannot be unseen. They cannot be pulled back into silence. And maybe you know this because you have opened up before. Maybe you once told someone exactly where it hurt, and instead of becoming more careful with you, they became careless. Maybe they used your honesty as evidence against you. Maybe they called you dramatic. Maybe they changed the subject. Maybe they made you comfort them for hurting you. And after enough moments like that, a person learns something very quietly. They learn that silence can feel safer than explanation. They learn that being misunderstood hurts less than being exposed and dismissed. They learn that if people are going to judge them anyway, maybe it is better to give them less to judge. And that is the hidden sadness behind many quiet people. They are not always silent because they have nothing to say. Sometimes they are silent because they have learned that speaking does not always lead to being heard. That is a very different wound. Because when you are not heard enough times, you do not just stop explaining to other people. You start explaining less to yourself. You start minimizing your own pain before anyone else can. You tell yourself, "It's fine." You tell yourself, "It's not worth bringing up." You tell yourself, "Maybe I am too sensitive." You tell yourself, "Maybe I should just move on." But the body does not move on just because the mouth says nothing. The heart does not heal just because the conversation never happened. Unspoken pain does not disappear. It waits. It sits quietly under your reactions. It shows up later in your hesitation, in your distance, in the way you expect disappointment before anyone has actually disappointed you, in the way you hear a small change in someone's tone and immediately prepare for emotional danger. And this is where silence can become both a shelter and a prison. At first, it protects you. It gives you space. It keeps you from reacting in ways you might regret. It helps you survive moments where speaking feels impossible. But if silence becomes the only place you feel safe, then eventually it does something painful. It keeps people out even when they are trying to love you well. It makes every relationship pass a test they may not even know they are taking. It makes closeness feel risky. It makes vulnerability feel like surrendering control. And slowly, you may find yourself wanting to be understood while also making it very difficult for anyone to reach you. Not because you are cruel, not because you are cold, but because being reached has not always felt safe. That is why healing is not about becoming a louder person. It is not about suddenly explaining every emotion the moment it appears. It is not about forcing yourself to be open with everyone. Healing is learning the difference between privacy and protection. Privacy says, "This part of me is sacred, and not everyone gets access to it." Protection says, "If anyone gets access to me, they might hurt me." Privacy is healthy. Protection is understandable. But when protection never rests, love starts to feel like a threat. And maybe the real growth is not abandoning your silence completely. Maybe the real growth is learning when silence is helping you and when silence is hiding you. Because sometimes silence is wisdom. Sometimes it keeps you from speaking out of pain. Sometimes it gives you time to understand what is really happening inside. Sometimes it protects a relationship from a moment that could damage it. But other times, silence becomes fear wearing the mask of control. It says, "Don't say anything." Not because the moment is wrong, but because the old wound is awake. It says, "Stay distant." Not because the person in front of you is unsafe, but because someone before them was. And that is one of the hardest things to admit. Sometimes the people in our present are paying the emotional debt of people from our past. Someone today asks what is wrong, and your body remembers someone years ago who punished you for answering. Someone today wants to understand you, and your heart remembers someone who only wanted information to use later. Someone today moves closer, and the younger part of you whispers, "Be careful." And listen. That younger part of you is not stupid. It protected you. It noticed patterns. It learned how to survive environments where softness was not safe. You do not have to hate that part of yourself. But you also do not have to let it drive every relationship for the rest of your life. Because survival skills are not always life skills. What protected you in one season may limit you in another. What helped you endure the wrong people may keep you distant from the right ones. And maybe this is where a new kind of courage begins. Not the courage to tell everyone everything, but the courage to tell the right person something true. Just one honest sentence. I need a little time, but I'm not leaving. That hurt me, and I'm trying to understand why. I want to talk, but I don't have the words yet. I'm quiet because I'm overwhelmed, not because I don't care. Do you see how different that is? You do not have to explain the whole storm. Sometimes you can simply tell someone there is a storm. That alone can change everything. Because the right people do not need perfect words. They need a doorway. They need to know that your silence is not a locked room. They need some small sign that you are still there behind the quiet. And yes, this will feel uncomfortable at first. Honesty often does when you have spent years surviving through self-control. A simple sentence may feel like too much. A small admission may feel exposed. You may feel the urge to take it back, to laugh it off, to disappear again. But every time you speak truth in a safe place and the world does not collapse, your nervous system learns something new. It learns, maybe I can be hurt and still be held. It learns, maybe I can speak and still be loved. It learns, maybe my emotions do not make me a burden. And that is not a small thing. That is the beginning of becoming free. Not free from feeling deeply. You may always feel deeply. Not free from needing time. You may always need time. But free from believing that silence is the only way to survive being hurt. Because one day, the goal is not to become someone who never goes quiet. The goal is to become someone who knows why they went quiet. Someone who can listen to their silence instead of being trapped by it. Someone who can pause without disappearing. Someone who can protect their peace without punishing their heart. Someone who can say, I need space, without secretly believing they are too much to be loved. And maybe that is the truth you needed today. Your silence was not born from emptiness. It was born from experience. It was built by the moments when you had to hold yourself together alone. It carried you through things people may never fully understand. So no, you are not broken because you go quiet when you are hurt. But you are also not meant to live forever behind a wall that was built during pain. You can honor the silence that protected you and still learn a softer way to be safe. You can take your time and still let people in. You can be careful and still be connected. You can be quiet without being unreachable. And the right people will not demand instant access to your heart. They will not punish you for needing a moment. They will not turn your honesty into a weapon. They will learn your pauses. They will respect your timing. They will remind you, patiently and consistently, that you do not have to disappear to be safe. And slowly, maybe not all at once, but slowly, you will begin to believe them. You will realize that being understood does not always require perfect words. Sometimes it begins with one brave sentence. One small opening. One moment where you choose connection instead of complete withdrawal. And when that happens, your silence will no longer be a prison. It will become a place you visit when you need to breathe. Not a place you live because you are afraid to be known. That is healing. Not becoming someone else. Not forcing yourself to be louder. But finally feeling safe enough to be real. If this video gave language to a part of you that has been misunderstood for too long, subscribe to the channel and stay close, because here we do not just talk about behavior. We uncover the hidden reasons behind it. And sometimes, understanding why you are the way you are is the first step toward becoming who you were always meant to be.